Welcome back again to Arinka's Kitchen. I have another family favorite recipe, and it's Hungarian baked bread, Sült Kenyér. And what I have here is a recipe for approximately 2 loaves of bread. And so I have 6 cups of pre-sifted flour, 2 tablespoons of salt, 4 1/4 tablespoons of vegetable shortening, and the 1/4 tablespoon is for greasing the pans, the loaf pans, and to grease the tops of the loaf mounds. 4 tablespoons of yeast and 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 1/2 cups of milk. So in a small mixing bowl, I added the yeast and the sugar and 1/2 cup of lukewarm milk and 1/2 cup of lukewarm water, and then I mixed it together, and then I allowed the yeast to rise. So I've got that all ready here to place into the flour. So I placed the flour and salt in a large mixing bowl, and I mixed the salt and flour together, and then I made a well in the center of it. And so with a fork I beat two eggs until they were frothy, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it into the well. So as you can see, I've sort of made a central kind of place for all of the ingredients to be poured into or to add it to. So I'm going to take the 2 whole eggs, and I've used brown eggs today for this recipe, and then I'm going to add the shortening to the middle, right into where the eggs are. Then I'm going to add my yeast, which has risen. I'm going to add all of this in the center of the flour. And then I'm going to cover all of these ingredients with flour. Cover all of this in the middle with flour, using the wooden spoon. Then I'm going to start kneading. I'm going to start kneading the dough. And as I'm kneading, I'm going to be adding about 2 cups of water. I'm just going to slowly add about 1 cup and 1 cup of the milk. And I'm going to start slowly kneading the dough together. Now this was a family favorite recipe of my grandmother and my mother's, and my mom would bake bread for us for lunches when she was at home while we were going to school, and it was just delicious. And really nice to have the homemade bread. And even when my mom worked, she would bake the bread. When she got home from work after supper, she'd put together a couple loaves of bread for us, and then we'd always have the fresh bread. So I'm going to add, it's a bit dry, so I'm going to keep adding my milk and water. Now I said approximately, so if you need more lukewarm water and milk, please feel free to. I'm just going to add a little bit of the water there. And so this should have a and I'm going to continue doing this until I get this fully kneaded, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you what to do, what the next steps are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to form a large mound, and I'm going to, once this is all mixed together thoroughly, or kneaded together thoroughly, I'm going to put it into another bowl, a floured bowl, and I'm going to let it rise for probably about a good hour and a half. Try about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So, and then it should sort of fill, your whole dough should be kind of like as large as this bowl is, as it is rising. So the dough has to rise. And then I'll show you what the next steps are to this great family recipe. Welcome back again to Rinka's Kitchen. I have another family favorite recipe that I'd like to share with you, and what I've done is I've put together the dough mixture, and now I'm going to continue showing you what to do with the actual dough that has risen. I've left it to rise for about 2 hours, so I'm going to show you what the dough looks like. So it should look like this. So what it's done is it's risen. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dough out of the bowl, and I've actually floured the bottom of the of this bowl. So I took it out of the other bowl that I used to mix the dough mixture together, and then I'm going to transfer it onto a sort of a cutting board. And my cutting board is also used for rolling out dough recipes. So I'm just going to take this, and of course it's going to deflate a bit, and I'm going to put it on. I'm going to put it on a flouring board. I'm just going to take it and transfer it over to my dough mound onto a flouring board. And the reason why I put flour on the bottom of this bowl so that it doesn't stick, the dough doesn't stick to the bowl. So I'm just going to set this aside, and I'm going to bring over the floured board, and I've got my my loaf pans already and greased with vegetable shortening. So in my recipe I include a quarter teaspoon, so it's 4 tablespoons of vegetable shortening, and then the quarter teaspoon is for greasing the top of the dough mound. So I'm just going to reshape it. So, and I've also floured the board. Reshape the mound a bit, and I'll just show you what that looks like. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to cut. If you have really large bread pans or loaf pans, then you can just use 2. But I'm going to cut these into half. Cut them in half. And then I'm going to take my greased loaf pan. So bring the camera up a bit higher. And I'm going to put this dough mound, half of this into my cake pan, or my loaf pan, sorry. And I'm just going to reshape it in there, just to make it kind of nice. Then I'm going to leave this to rise again. So it's going to come above, it's going to come to the top, probably rise about that high, and then it's ready to be put into the oven. So you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's one mound. It's going to kind of shape it nicely. And then I'm going to take my other dough mound, the half of it, and I'm going to place that into my next loaf pan, and I'm just going to kind of arrange it nicely in here, and ready to go for it to rise again. So if you have small loaf pans, you could probably do 4. You can divide it into quarter pieces. But they're kind of medium-sized loaf pans. If you've got medium-sized loaf pans, that's great. depending on how large of loaves you want to make. You can actually put it into a larger loaf pan and just make one. But this is a recipe for two, for medium-sized loaf pan. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put these back here so that you can see them. I'm going to put some vegetable shortening on top again to make it nice and shiny. And I'm going to, as in my recipe, I'm going to bake this recipe for about approximately 45 minutes. So you want to let the dough mounds in the loaf pan double in size for approximately 30 to 40 minutes. You wait until it kind of rises up to the top of the loaf pan, and there's sort of like a mound, a big sort of like a mound. And then what you do is you bake that for 45 minutes in the oven, and then you lower the temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit and bake it for an additional 30 minutes and until the top of the loaves are golden brown. Then you take out the loaves from the oven and you allow them to cool for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you remove them carefully from the loaf pan. Now that's why I've put the vegetable shortening. I've greased the pans, the sides and the bottom, and then I take them out, and I usually just use a butter knife to sort of like loosen the sides of the loaf so that it comes out quite nicely. And then you place them on a cooling rack, and then they're ready to serve with butter or margarine and your favorite jam, whatever you want to put on it. It can be served with dinner, with a dinner menu, or just by itself, or even making sandwiches, homemade, bread with cold cut meats and that for your children's lunches. That would be kind of a big surprise for them, or just making a nice sandwich from them. Because my mother used to do that. My grandmother used to do that. She used to make the baked bread for her kids, and then just put some meat in there, or just jam, just simple jam, or peanut butter or whatever, and it would be a great lunch for your family. So what I'll do is I will come back and show you what this great recipe looks like when it's coming fresh out of the oven, and I'll cut up a few slices so that you can see what the inside looks like. Now you can use other types of flour too. I've used the pre-sifted bleached flour, but you can use whole wheat flour, so you can just add the same ingredients to this recipe, and you can use any type of flour that you like that will be good for your family, or whatever kind of flour that you enjoy to have for your bread. So I'll be back, and I will show you what this great recipe looks like. Welcome back again to Rinka's Kitchen. I had in the oven some baked bread, Hungarian baked bread, so I put the two loaves into the oven, and I preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I lowered the temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So I baked the loaves for about 45 minutes at 350 and 325 degrees Fahrenheit for an additional 30 minutes, so until the tops of the loaves became golden brown. So what I'd like to do is show you what this great recipe looks like coming fresh out of the oven. So I've already cut up one loaf, and I'd just like to show you this one that I've cut up and just show you what the inside of the loaf looks like. Now that's what that looks like, and they're fairly large loaves of bread. And then what I'll do is I will show you one that hasn't been cut up. So they look like this. They're about approximately this big. So they turn out quite large. Now these can be also frozen, and you'd want to wrap them in parchment paper and then a brown paper bag, large paper bag. Sort of wrap them well and then put them in a freezer safe bag and seal them. So they can be frozen. These loaves of bread can be frozen if you wanted to make some extra ones. And then what I'm going to show you is traditionally what Hungarians serve the bread with fresh bread with. So I've used margarine, but you can use butter, and I've used my plum jam, the one that I made. And there is a recipe for homemade plum jam that can be baked in the oven. So this is, in Hungarian it's called Sült Kenyér, and it means jam bread. So this is what it would be served with. Then you can drink it with a glass of milk, or you can use with any of your favorite jams that you want. Then of course traditionally it can also be served with peppers, like yellow bell peppers or yellow peppers, or hot peppers if you like hot peppers. And then of course sprinkle a little bit of paprika on top just for color. And this is hot pepper. My husband likes hot Hungarian pepper, but you can use a sweet paprika. And this is traditional. So this is a kind of like, it's called Sült Kenyér, and they usually traditionally would use animal fat like lard, and then they'd put some Hungarian, sort of like the yellow peppers, sweet peppers. I've used yellow bell peppers today. So this is also a traditional way of serving, Hungarian traditional way of serving freshly baked bread. So what I'd like to mention to you about putting the dough mixture together, I found that 1 cup of lukewarm water, as I was adding it, I used about 1 cup of lukewarm water to the dough mixture, and then I used 2 cups of lukewarm milk. Then I added another extra half a cup of pre-sifted flour, any flour that you're going to be baking your bread with. And so I found that that was the perfect combination to get a sort of a soft dough, but then it's not sticky, so that when you touch it, it's not going to stick to your hands. So that I experimented with that, and that's basically that really is it works quite well to use the 2 cups of lukewarm water and the 1 cup of lukewarm water, and then add your half a cup of pre-sifted flour. So I've added an extra half a cup to my ingredients. If you look at that extra half a cup, because I did at the beginning of my video I mentioned 6 cups, so half a cup extra in there with the 2 cups of lukewarm milk and the 1 cup of lukewarm water will give you that right consistency to be able to put the dough together. If you have any questions or comments regarding this recipe, please feel free to contact me at irene@arinkaskitchen.com or arinkaskitchen.com. Until next time, bon appetit, jó étvágyat!